All right, today we're diving into porphyria, and let me tell you, it's this fascinating group of rare genetic disorders that's basically a medical detective story. For centuries, the biggest clue was just hiding in plain sight, a really strange and mysterious color that turned out to be the key to everything.
And the answer to that is, well, pretty much everything. Seriously, this question is the absolute key to unlocking the whole story of porphyria. It's the central clue in this incredible biological detective story, and it all starts with the name itself.
So check this out. The name porphyria, it comes straight from the Greek word porphyros, which means, you guessed it, purple. And here's why. Way back in the 1870s, doctors started noticing this really bizarre symptom. Some of their patients had urine the color of port wine. Now, this wasn't just some weird random thing. It was the first major clue that these strange purple-colored compounds, which we call porphyrins, were building up inside the body.
Okay, so to really get what's going wrong here, we first have to understand what's supposed to go right. And that means we need to take a look inside our body's own little microscopic factory, an assembly line, really, where one of the most essential molecules for life gets made. And that molecule is called heme. And you have to appreciate the sheer scale of this operation. I mean, get this, somewhere between 70 and 80% of all the heme your body makes is for just one single purpose: building hemoglobin, the protein in your red blood cells that carries oxygen. To put it really simply, no heme, no oxygen. It is that critical.
Now, the whole process is pretty complex biochemically, but we can think of it like a perfectly synchronized 8-step assembly line that's happening inside our cells. So let's break down how this little factory actually works.
Okay, so step one, you've got to have your raw materials, right? Simple building blocks, things like glycine and succinyl-CoA, they all get delivered to the factory floor to kick things off. Next up, a whole crew of 8 highly specialized enzymes gets to work. Think of them as the workers at each station on the assembly line. Each one has a very specific job to do, modifying the materials in a perfect sequence and then passing them down the line to the next worker.
And finally, at the very end of this super meticulous process, the final product rolls off the line, a perfect heme molecule. It's now ready to be slotted into hemoglobin so it can do its incredibly important job of carrying oxygen all through your body.
So that's the system when everything's working perfectly. But what happens in porphyria? Well, imagine a glitch on that assembly line. Just one worker, one little machine, suddenly stops working right.
This is the core problem. The root cause of porphyria is a genetic defect that makes one of those 8 crucial enzymes, one of our assembly line workers, either faulty or maybe just partially deficient. The bottom line is, the body just can't perform one of the 8 steps correctly.
And what does that do? It creates a massive bottleneck. It's like a traffic jam on the assembly line, backing up right before that broken station. All those unfinished materials, those purple porphyrins we talked about, they start to pile up. And with nowhere else to go, they just spill out of the factory and into the rest of the body, and that's where they become toxic.
Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. That single core problem, that one bottleneck in the haeme factory, can actually cause 2 dramatically different sets of symptoms, and it all depends on which one of the 8 enzymes is the one that's broken. So broadly speaking, we split porphyria into 2 main groups. First, you have the acute porphyrias. These cause sudden, severe internal attacks on the nervous system, affecting the brain and organs, and they're often triggered by things like drugs, hormones, or stress. Then, on the other hand, you have the non-acute types. These show up externally. They mainly affect the skin, making it super sensitive to sunlight, which can cause blistering and scarring. So when doctors are investigating, they're basically looking for one of 2 main pictures: these acute neurological attacks or skin problems from the sun. But just to make things even more complicated, some rare types can actually have both. And yeah, that presents a real challenge for diagnosis. And to really understand just how severe an acute attack can be, you just have to look at the numbers. For almost everyone, we're talking 85 to 90% of patients, it starts with excruciating abdominal pain. But it can quickly spiral into a full-body crisis. We see motor neuropathy. That's basically damage to the nerves that control your muscles, which can lead to weakness and even paralysis. This is, without a doubt, a life-threatening medical emergency. So with symptoms that can range all the way from terrible stomach pain to skin blisters, how on earth do doctors even begin to crack this case? It really is like being a medical detective. And just like any detective, to solve the puzzle, they have to go find the evidence.
In this case, that means finding those toxic materials that have spilled out from that broken assembly line. The evidence locker here? It's samples of a patient's urine, blood, and even feces. These are the places where those spilled, unfinished parts, the porphyrins, are going to show up. You see, each type of porphyria leaves behind its own unique chemical fingerprint in these samples. So by analyzing them, labs can see exactly what kind of porphyrins have built up. That fingerprint tells them precisely which one of the 8 enzymes has gone wrong, which lets them pinpoint the exact type of porphyria and, finally, solve the case. All right, so once the diagnosis is confirmed, the focus shifts. It's no longer about investigation, it's about management. How do you live with a faulty assembly line day to day? And the answer, you might find, is actually pretty surprising.
Now get this, because this is fascinating. For the most common acute type of porphyria, scientists estimate that only about 1% of people who actually have the gene for it will ever experience a full-blown attack. 1%. That tells us that just having the faulty gene isn't the whole story. The glitch can just lie dormant for years until a specific trigger, like a certain drug or a lot of stress, suddenly puts that heme factory into overdrive.
So managing this is a multi-part strategy. First, and most important, is just avoiding the known triggers, things like certain drugs, alcohol, or even fasting. Now, if an acute attack does happen, doctors can give intravenous haeme. That's basically like giving the body the finished product, which sends a signal to the factory to just slow down. But the most exciting part? These new RNA-based therapies. They act like tiny molecular scissors that can go in and target the source of the problem, stopping that faulty assembly line before it even gets started.
And all of this brings us to a final, really important question. You know, for people with porphyria, the whole journey often starts with just a mysterious symptom, that purple clue that can go unrecognized for years. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? For the millions of people living with rare diseases, what's actually the biggest hurdle? Is it the condition itself, or is it that long, exhausting, and often frustrating journey just to finally get a diagnosis and give that mystery a name?